Hello everyone, and welcome to today's Beginning Roof Design webinar. My name is Kayla, and I will be presenting for you today. And then we have Stephanie here with us as well. She's here on chat to answer any and all questions you might have during today's presentation. Now before we jump into our plan, let's take a look at our GoToMeeting control panel. So for our audio, it will default to use mic and speakers. Now we do have everyone muted today, so don't worry about setting up a microphone, but if you're having trouble hearing me, go ahead and select the sound check option. It'll allow you to troubleshoot some options to figure out what's going on there. If you still have problems hearing me, you can always select over to the telephone option. A number and an access code will appear below so that you can call in and listen in that way. To ask a question, you can simply type it right into this little section down here, hit enter, and you'll see your question and Stephanie's answer here below. So she is here to answer any questions you have. And it will minimize this GoToMeeting control panel to this little section here up in the top corner of your screen. You can select this orange button to maximize it if you're not seeing the options here. Now we do have 5 different products in our product line. We will be using Home Designer Architectural today, and everything that we do should apply to all of our Home Designer programs. So today, we're going to start off by just going through some of our basic roof terms and the roof dialog box that we have. Then we're going to go through creating the basic styles, so creating a gambrel, gable, number of different styles there. Then we'll go into some more complex roof designs, so a salt box, which is this middle one here, and a couple of other ones that you might run across. And we'll finish up by taking a look at a more complex structure where we can integrate a lot of these different styles into one home. So now let's open up our plan. Again, we're using Home Designer Architectural today. Now we're just going to start with a blank plan. And we'll start by just drawing out our walls. So we're going to come up to our architectural toolbar, or our drawing toolbar here at the top. We're going to grab a straight exterior wall. Then we're simply going to click and drag to draw out a wall. And we'll draw out 4 walls. And as soon as we finish off our room, as we connect all 4 walls together, there's a number of things that happen here. And I'm going to zoom in a little bit with my scroll wheel on my mouse. So first of all, we have our living area that appears below here. We have some temporary dimensions that appear alongside our walls. And then we have these green dashed lines. Now these are our roof planes, or indicating where our roof planes are. And so mostly today we're going to be paying attention to those. So now let's get right in and take a look at what this looks like in 3D. So we're going to come up to our camera tools. We're going to do a perspective full overview, which is going to show our full home with the roof. So as you can see, by default, we have our hip roof placed on our structure. So it's going to place this without my having to do anything else. If I wanted a hip roof, we would be done at this point. Unless, of course, I needed to adjust the pitch of this. But what I'm going to do is we're going to get into a glass house, because that's kind of an easy way to see this structure. And I'm going to tile these 2 vertically. So I'm just going to grab this tab here and pull it over until I see that blue showing where I want to drop it. Now if you're using a previous version of Home Designer, or even if you're using the 2016 version, we can come up to our window menu here at the top, and we can select to tile vertically, or you can use your shortcut Shift F6. So there's a lot of different ways that we can get into this configuration. I prefer to work in both 2D and 3D so that I can adjust things in my plan view, but also see what's happening as I adjust them in my 3D. So now I just want to go through a quick kind of glossary of terms here. And we'll start just by opening up our Build Roof dialog so we can take a look at some of those options. So here are our roof options, and I'm going to select Build Roof. We're going to be working in this a lot because this is where we can make adjustments to the roof as a whole. Notice I do have Auto Rebuild Roofs turned on. What that means is that as I make changes, it's going to automatically update my roof, and we'll see what that means here in just a bit. Now the pitch as it's set here is going to be kind of our global pitch. So if we were to update it here, and we can change that, it would update the roof as a whole. So if we change this to 12 in 12 is how we would say that, you can see it's going to make our pitch quite a lot steeper. And just to illustrate this, first of all I'm going to undo that. Just to illustrate it, we're going to get into a cross section. So I'm just going to do an elevation view, and we're going to take an elevation of this side. So when we're talking about pitch, what we're talking about is the slope of the roof, or how steep it is. And I have an image here that'll illustrate this a little better. So when we're talking about an 8 in 12 pitch, what that means is for every 1 foot that we go over, we go 8 inches up. So when we switched it earlier to a 12 in 12 pitch, it meant that for every 12 inches that we're moving over along this cross section of the roof, we were going 12 inches up. So it steepens the roof pitch. And we can go through that again while we're here in this elevation view. So let's just do that build roof, and we're going to globally change this to a 12 in 12 pitch. Then select OK. You can see how much steeper that roof looks. And opening up that build roof dialog again, first of all I'm going to change back to 8. And we have our alcove size, which we'll illustrate that a little bit later. And then we have our eave overhang and gable overhang. So right now the eave overhang is set at 18 inches, which is for like a hip structure right here. We're talking from the outer edge of the roof to the edge of our roof plane. So that's set at 18 inches. If we were to increase that, our overhang would increase across the entire plan. For today's purposes, we're just going to leave both the eave overhang and the gable overhang, which is when we have a gable structure, how far that is extending beyond the gable. We're going to leave those both at 18 inches. And we'll select OK, and again we're back down to 8 and 12. I'm going to exit out of this elevation, we don't really need that right now. So now we're going to begin to go through some of our various roof styles, and we're going to do that. The way we adjust the roof in Home Designer programs is we select the wall that the roof plane is bearing on, and we indicate what the roof plane above it is going to do. So if we were to select this wall, which would be this wall in our 3D view, when we open this wall up, we have a panel for roof. Now this is where we're going to make changes to this roof plane. So we can steepen this roof plane alone simply by opening up the wall beneath it. So if I were to change that to a 12 and 12 pitch and select OK, and we'll get into a slightly different angle here, you can see that's quite a bit steeper than the other 3 roof planes. So if we come back in here and go to our roof panel, we're going to go ahead and change that back to 8. And here's where we can also adjust the overhang on a wall by wall basis as well. Now we're going to change this over to a gable. So we can create our basic gable structure, which will look like this. So if we want to create a gable, all we have to do is simply select this full gable wall, which is essentially going to remove any roof plane bearing on this wall, and extend it up to a gable. If we come over to the other side, if we want that gable to extend onto this wall as well, we can select the opposite wall, and we have a shortcut down here in our Edit toolbar. You can see this little icon, and it's going to tell us a preview of what that is. It says Change to Gable Wall. So I can click, and it's going to create that gable for me on this side as well. And as soon as I have selected that, notice my icon changes so that now I can change it to a hip wall again. So with one click, we can change back and forth from hip to gable. So now if we were going to change this to an offset gable, where we have a different pitch on either side, we already know how to do this. We're going to open up the wall that the roof plane is bearing on, and we can raise and lower our roof pitch by coming down to our roof panel, and let's change this to a 4 in 12 pitch. Select OK, and now in 3D we can see that offset gable where we have a shallower pitch on one side and a steeper pitch on the other. So we can do any combination of different roof pitches for that offset gable. Now from here, if we wanted to move into a shed roof, which is where we have just a single roof plane going all the way up to meet up with a higher wall on one end of our house, we can select the wall that we want to be the shed, the high wall. We're going to open it up, and in our roof panel, we have an option here for high shed gable wall. If we select that, notice it removed a pitch, which is indicating to us that we're not going to have any type of a pitch above there, or it grayed it out rather. Select OK, and now we have that shed roof that's coming all the way up, and it's automatically raised our wall to meet up with it. And we can select the wall that the roof plane is bearing on, which is this far wall over here, open it up, and we can adjust the pitch. So if we want it to be a shallower pitch, like 2 and 12, we can lower that down. So now we know how to do just a single roof plane, but what about something like a gambrel structure? So that's where we have multiple pitches above a single wall. So bearing on this wall, we have two different pitched roofs. So from here, let's go to our roof panel. We can change the pitch back to, so let's change this pitch back to, or let's do a 10 and 12, so a little bit steeper. Now we have an option here, a checkbox, to select an upper pitch. So that's where we're telling the program that we want actually two roof pitches above this single wall. And we're going to leave that 6 and 12 is perfect. That's exactly what I was thinking. Now we have two options to tell the program where we want this second roof pitch to start. So we can start at a specific height. So if we know that it needs to be 200 inches off of the ground or 15 feet, whatever that's going to be, we can definitely change the height, or we can select in from the baseline. Now when we're talking about a baseline, before I make any changes here actually, let's take a look at this. So the baseline is going to be on the outer edge of our wall. So anytime that we're talking about our baseline, that's where the roof pitch is essentially bearing on the wall itself. So it would be this point right here, if we zoom in, where it's going to pivot around. So if we get back into that roof dialog, or sorry, let's open up that wall again, apologize for that. And so we're going to do 10 and 12, we're going to do an upper pitch of 6 and 12. Let's start at 60 inches in from the baseline, which again is going to be 60 inches from this outer edge of the wall. We'll select OK, and you can see we now have two roof pitches. Now we need to do the same thing on the opposite side, because this is a very strange sort of shed configuration we've got going on here. So we're going to open up the opposite wall, and we're going to go down to our roof panel, and we're going to remove the high shed gable, change this to 10, select an upper pitch, and let's do 60 inches in from the baseline. So now we have that gambrel structure where we have those two roof pitches coming up from each wall. And if you're just coming right into the program and wanting to create a gambrel, don't forget that we do have the two gable ends as well. So that's where we started from for this one. So now we're going to do exactly the opposite. We're going to do a gull wing. So that's where we're going to have a shallow roof pitch at first, and then it's going to get steeper as it nears our center. So we're going to select one of our walls, open it up, come down to the roof panel, and let's just reverse these two. So we're going to do 6 and 12, and then 10 and 12 is going to be our upper pitch. Then let's do 60 inches in from the baseline. We'll just keep that all the same. Select OK. Now we have that gull wing. Now my roof properties are actually contained in this wall. So if I want to extend that over to the other side, I'm going to do something where I'm going to copy that wall, and then I'm simply going to paste it onto the other side. So Notice when I pasted that wall, which I did with just a single click, it copied the gull wing properties over to the other side of our house. So that can be a nice efficient way to get the properties over without having to open up our wall again. And now, finally, our last one before we move into a little bit more complex structures, is we're going to do a half hip. So that's where we have a kind of a combination of a gable and a hip. So to do this, we're going to first move back into just our original gable. So we'll open up our wall and remove the upper pitch. We can leave it at 6 and 12, that's fine. We'll do the same on the other side. Move the upper pitch. All right, so now we're back to a more shallow gable. And from here, we're going to open up actually our gable end. So we're looking at this wall right here. And we're going to leave it a gable, but we're going to open it up and come down to the roof panel. Now our pitch is grayed out because when we have a gable, we don't have any roof plane bearing on it, so there's not any pitch to indicate. But this checkbox is an option to select an upper pitch. So if we select that, it's going to allow us to change this. So we're going to do an upper pitch of, let's just leave 6 and 12, that's fine. Now these are indicating how far in from the baseline on either side this hip is going to start. So the larger the number that we're putting in here, the smaller the hip structure we're going to have. So if I change this to, let's do 60 inches, we've done that quite a bit, and select OK, you can see that hip that's developed here. And then if we increase that, so if we open that back up, we increase that up to 80 inches. Here, I'll move this over so we can see what's going to happen. Select OK. Notice that reduced the size of this hip roof plane. So it's indicating how far from this baseline this hip portion starts. And then the roof pitch in that instance obviously is indicating the pitch of this hip itself. So now we've gone through all of our basic styles. I just want to show you, if we go back into this build roof dialog, which again is our global settings. So if we're changing the pitch here, we're changing the pitch throughout our entire plan. But we have this panel down here for roof styles. So these are going to open up instructions, step-by-step instructions on how to create the different styles that we've just gone through. So if you need a little bit more information on that, you can definitely come into the program and you'll get some instructions on that. So now we're going to do a little bit more of a complex structure. We're going to move into doing a salt box roof. So what that's going to look like is we're going to do a two-story structure that one of the roof planes meets up with our second floor walls, and the second roof plane comes all the way down to meet with our first floor. So to do that, we're going to rearrange this structure a little bit. First of all, we're going to change this back to a gable. If we come into our roof, we're going to remove that upper pitch here. Select OK. And we're going to, first of all, redimension this plan. So to do that, I'm going to select any wall that I want to physically move in my plan. So in this case, I'm going to select my wall over here. Then I'm going to select its perpendicular dimension. In this case, it's indicating that the length or the distance from this wall to its opposite wall is 29 feet 1 inch. So I'm going to change that to 40 feet. Hit enter. It's going to lengthen that wall for me. And then I want to move this back wall. We're going to select its dimension, and this we're going to make 30 feet. So we're just going to make our structure a bit bigger here. And let's get around to a slightly different angle. Actually, we're even going to exit out and just start with a new camera again. So we'll do a full overview and get back to our glass house and then tile our views vertically. Alright, so now we're going to build a new floor. So I'm going to create my second floor, and our floor tools are right next to our roof tools up here in our architectural toolbar. We'll select Build New Floor. Now it's asking me, do I want to derive the second floor from the first floor, which simply means, do I want to place the second floor walls exactly on top of the first floor walls? So I'm going to select OK, that's exactly what I want to do. I can raise or lower the ceiling height of the second floor at this point, but I'm just going to accept all the defaults and select OK. So now we have our two-story structure. Now up on the second floor, which you can see I'm already here, it's indicating my second floor, so I can go down to the first or the second. I can select this back wall, and we're going to pull it back to 20 feet. Hit enter. So now we have a gable wall up here, or a gable roof, and then it's actually a gable roof down here, but it's looking like a shed roof based on the fact that it meets up with our second floor. So what I want to do at this point is I want this roof plane to come all the way up and meet up with this one. So to do that, I need to take this wall that we just moved, so this back wall on our second floor. I'm going to open it up, and in my roof panel, I have an option to select it as a knee wall. So what a knee wall is, we'll select OK, is it's a wall that's simply going to come up to meet with the roof. So it's going to not move the roof planes itself, the roof planes move the knee wall. So the roof planes are telling that knee wall how high it's going to be. In other words, if I come down to my first floor and I change this pitch, so again I'm opening up this wall, which right now we have a 6 and 12 pitch. If I were to change that to something like a 10 and 12, select OK, you can see my knee wall moved up to meet with that steeper pitch. So in using that knee wall option, we can create a variety of different salt box structures such as this. So next, we're going to move into a clear story structure. So what we're going to do is let's just delete the second floor, which we can do in our floor tools. We don't want to delete the first floor. Let's go up to the second floor first and delete current floor. So we're back down to our single story structure. Looks like we have an offset gable going on here. Let's open this up and we'll change it to 10 and 12 to meet up with the other one. Alright, so now we're back to a gable, a single story gable structure, and we're going to move into working on our clear story. So we'll show you what that looks like here. So that's going to be two shed roofs that meet up in the middle and have room to have some windows here at the top. So what we're going to do to start out with is we're going to draw two walls in the center of our plan. So we're going to do two exterior walls here, and we're simply going to draw them in the center. Then, and we want to make sure the siding is facing out, so that's perfect. Then I want these to be 18 inches apart. So I'm going to select this wall here. We're going to select this dimension, which is showing us the distance between these two walls. We're going to change that to 18 inches, hit enter. And now I'm going to select this little room that's created in between. I'm going to open it up, and under structure we're going to remove the roof from this room. So we're going to completely eliminate any roof over that section. And so we have two little gables going on here. Now to create our sheds, we know that we need to open up these walls and change them to high shed gable walls. So that's how we're going to create our shed roofs. There's one, and we'll open up this other wall. Oh, here we go. Open it up, and high shed. Alright, so now we have the two shed roofs that it's looking kind of like a very strange gable at this point. But what we're going to do is we're going to adjust the pitch. So we're going to take this wall back here, open it up, and under roof we're going to change this to a 4 and 12 pitch. So we're going to make it pretty shallow so that there is room, if we rotate around, for windows here at the top. And if we wanted to, we can adjust the pitch of this one, but I think that's plenty high. Now I'm going to open up this room here. I'm going to open it up, and under the structure we're going to remove the ceiling over the room. So here we have a ceiling. We're We're going to remove it, and now the ceiling is just going to meet up with the roof plane so that when we put in windows it's going to extend down in the space. So now that we have the roof set, so we have the two roof planes set exactly where they need to be, we don't need to make any more adjustments to the roof. What we're going to do is we're going to go back into our build roof dialog, and for the first time we're going to remove this auto rebuild roofs. I'm going to show you what this does. So we'll select OK. Now let's say I were to open up this wall, which is this wall back here, and I wanted to change the pitch of the roof to 8 and 12. Select OK. Nothing is going to adjust because we have auto rebuild roofs turned off, so any adjustments I'm making are not affecting the roof, which in this case is really handy because when I delete this wall here, it's not going to affect my roof. So it retains the two shed structures, or the two shed roofs, when I delete that wall. So there's a handful of situations where it's really, really handy to be able to turn off our auto rebuild roofs. And then from here, if we wanted to drop in a window or two here, we can just place them right up here and it's going to give us some light in that space. There we go. Alright, so now we're going to just go ahead and delete those windows because we're going to move into creating an A-frame structure. This is another one where eventually we're going to need to turn off that auto rebuild roofs. So with that A-frame, what that's going to look like is it's going to be, our roof planes are going to come all the way down to meet up with our first floor, So to do that, let's X out of here, we're going to get back into just a basic gable. So we're going to turn back on our auto rebuild. We can delete this wall here and turn back on our auto rebuild roofs, set an 8 and 12 pitch. And we've made some adjustments here, so let's open this up and we're going to change the roof back to D, which is our default 8 and 12. Open it up. Roof and we'll change this to D as well. Select OK. So because we changed it back to our default, now when we get into our build roof, if we change our pitch now to something like 22 and 12, which is going to be very steep, it's still going to change because we have the wall pitches set as default. And we need to adjust our 3D view here. There we go. Then we're going to open up this room, and under our structure we're going to lower our finished ceiling height down to about 10. So that's going to drop the roof down so that it's meeting up with our floor here. And now, just like we did before, now that our roof is set where it needs to be, we're going to come into our build roof dialog and we're going to turn off auto rebuild roofs. So that now when we raise that ceiling height back up, because if we take a full camera view of what's going on in here, we don't have a ceiling. So we're going to raise this structure back up to, let's just do default, select OK. So now we have a ceiling. So if we stand inside of here, that's what we're looking at. Now we're going to create a loft area. And to do that, I'm going to go up to my floor options and we're going to go to build new floor. We're going to make a new blank plan for the second floor. So we're not actually going to derive the walls directly on top because they're not going to be directly on top. We'll select OK. Then we'll select OK just to accept the defaults. And now we're up on our second floor. And from here, let's turn on our reference display, which we can do right here, so we can see what's going on the floor below. Now I'm going to grab my exterior walls and we're just going to draw out 4 walls right about here to create a room up on our second floor. So if we're looking in our glass house 3D view over here, we can see what's going on. I am going to remove the ceiling from this because these lines right here are indicating where my ceiling is starting. I don't really want a ceiling. I want it to just go all the way up to meet up with the roof. So we're going to remove the ceiling but retain the roof. There we go. Now we're going to divide this space in half. And I'm going to do that with my railing tool. So I have a railing right next to the wall. We're just going to divide the space. So you can see that railing here. Then this section, which is our front section for our home, we're going to open this up, and in our structure, actually that's not the front section, here we go. We're going to grab this one. And under our general, we're going to go to open below. So that's going to open up the space so that we have open to the below section. So looking at our glass house, we have a loft area and then our bottom area. So a pretty typical A-frame structure. So now we're going to go back to just our typical gable. So we're going to delete the current floor. So we'll get rid of that second floor and we'll turn back on auto rebuild roofs, change our pitch to an 8 and 12 pitch. And with that, we're back to a gable. And in our plan view, let's go back down to the first floor and turn off our reference display. We don't need that anymore. So now we're just going to take a look at a few more options that we have here. I'm going to rotate around to this side. So under our roof options, we have this gable roof line. What this does is it's a line that we can draw out anywhere that there's not already a gable. And it will create that gable for us. So this is a great way to be able to customize where you want different gables to go. Now you also have the option, if we drop in a door, for instance, or even a window, you can select that door, and down in our edit toolbar there's this gable over door window option. So with one click it's going to create a gable over that door. Or, and let's delete this gable line for just a second here, if we move this door over, we'll remove the gable for now. Let's drop in 2 windows next to it. So we're going to do a window on either side. We can select all 3 options and place a gable over all 3. So if we want a gable to be centered over a door and extend over both windows, we can do that pretty easily. So we have quite a few different options for creating different gables throughout our structure, depending upon how we're wanting to go about that. Now, I also want to show you, let's remove this gable here. There we go. If we have a deck out in front, so if we draw out, well, let's just do a front porch. So we're going to draw out with just our straight railing a porch area, and we're going to name it a porch. In this structure, we can make sure that we have roof over this room selected. So as long as roof over this room is selected, we can use these railings just like any other wall within the program. So we can change it to a gable or back again. We can change this to a shed by making the 2 sides gables. That's a pretty steep shed, so let's change the front to a 3 and 12. There we go. So we can adjust these railings just like we would any other wall within the program. Or let's say we didn't have railings at all. So if these were, and we'll open this up just so you can see this, if we open up this front one, we actually make this an invisible wall. The invisible wall is still going to act just like any other wall. So even though there's not a wall there physically 3D in the program, there is an invisible wall that's going to define our roof just like any other wall. So if we have a porch that's going to just be held up by columns and not have any type of a railing attached to it, we can still adjust the roof and make sure that there's a roof over the structure. And then if we wanted to remove the roof over that porch, we would open up the room, and under our structure panel, we're just going to deselect roof over this room, and now it removes it, so we just are back to that gable. And then let's remove that front porch that we have going on here. All right, so coming back to our roof options up here, we also have a skylight option. So I'm going to rotate around a little bit so we can see what happens here. If we drop in a skylight, it's going to automatically create a shaft all the way down to our ceiling. So in this case, if we were to remove the ceiling over this room, but again retain the roof, we can see that shaft is just going to go through the roof structure and not extend down into the room. And we can adjust quite a few things about this skylight. We can adjust its size and its location on the roof. You can get pretty customized about that. And if we open up the skylight, we also have options here for how that hole is being created and what it's doing when it connects up with the ceiling. Then we do have this dormer option as well. So how this dormer works in the Home Designer Architectural program, just drop that in and open it up. And then we can make adjustments to the type. So we can even do something like a barrel. We select OK, we can see that barrel adjustment, or an eyebrow, which is then going to meet up with the roof, or any of the ones that we've worked with today, so our shed or our hip. We'll leave it at a gable, and then we can specify what our pitch is going to be. So let's change this to a 6 and 12 pitch, and we can change the overhang specifically to the dormer as opposed to the rest of the structure. And we can do a roof return, which we'll work with roof returns a little bit later, and adjust the walls and the materials, of course. So we select OK. It will show us that shallower 6 and 12 gable. And we can also adjust the size of it. So if we pull it in, move it around on this roof plane as well, so we can pull it back a little. So you have a lot of flexibility with dormers to create different styles for the home. Now before we move into our final plan, I want to show you how alcoves work within the program. So what we're going to do is we're going to draw out an alcove, which is basically just a recess in the wall. So what we're going to do is grab an exterior wall, and we're going to draw out 3 walls coming into this home plan. And let's actually rotate around so we can see this a little better. And I'm going to turn my ceiling back on for this too. We'll delete these and turn on the ceiling. There we go. So what the alcove does, and I'm going to open up our Build Roof dialog so we can take a look at this. Here in our Build Roof dialog, we have a minimum alcove size, which currently is set at 36 inches. So that means that anything greater than 36 inches, or any alcove greater than 36 inches, for instance when we break this and pull it back, is going to new roof planes and eaves coming down into this alcove. But if we reduce the size of this down to just below 36 inches, so let's do 35 inches, the roof will ignore the alcove and extend across. So if we do, let's undo that. Let's say we have a 4-foot 7-inch alcove and we want the roof to extend all the way over that. If we go open our Build Roof dialog, we have it set at 4 feet 7 inches, so let's do 4 feet 8 inches as our minimum alcove size. It will ignore that niche and extend all the way across. So that minimum alcove size just gives you a little bit more flexibility in your design. So finally today we're going to open up a home that's already finished. So let's just exit out of this one and we'll open up our plan. Here we go. We're going to work on this structure. So we're going to replicate this roof here today. So to start out with, let's just get into a 3D view of our home. So right now, take our full overview. And you can see we have the structure finished. We have a second floor, but we don't have any roof on top of here. And just like we did earlier, we're going to tile our views vertically. And again, you can select Shift F9 if you want a shortcut for that. Or excuse me, Shift F6 if you want a shortcut for that one. And we'll scroll in here. We're going to go up to our second floor where we're going to start to build our roof. So we'll begin simply by selecting Build Roof, and we do want Auto Rebuild Roofs on. We'll leave the pitch at 12 and 12. Select OK. And you can see it placed our hip roof on for us. Now, the structure that we're wanting to do is quite a bit different from that, so we're going to need to make several changes. First of all, if you'll notice, our roof planes are actually meeting up with our first floor wall, so we're pretty close there too. So, in a similar fashion to how we created that A-frame earlier, we're going to open up our second floor, and under the structure, we're going to lower this down to 18 inches. Then select OK. So it's going to drop that down quite a bit. And it will retain our windows for us, which is great because we're going to be creating gables in all of those places. So we'll start over on this side because we need to have this section a gable. And we'll simply use our shortcut to change that over to a gable wall. Then we can select this side and change it over to a gable, but I don't want that gable to extend all the way over here. So we'll actually break that back to a hip, and we're going to use our break wall tool. So what this is going to do, when I click on that wall, it's going to break it into two completely separate sections so that I can adjust the roof independently on those two sections. So I'm going to select this larger portion, the one that's opposite our current gable, and we're going to change that to a gable. Now it's not quite matching up with my ridge line there, so we're just going to use our edit handles to pull this down a little bit. There we go. So now we have that ridge line extending all the way across the home, which, if we look at our picture, is what we want to have happen. Now we're going to change these two front ones to gable. So let's change this one to a gable. All right. And then we're going to change this section to a gable as well. So we're getting closer to what we want if we take a look at our plan, but we have actually two different roof pitches coming off of this wall, which again is our invisible wall. So we don't have a physical wall here, but we have two roof pitches coming off of it. So we'll select this one. We're going to open it up. Oh, that's not what I meant to do. Change that back to a hip. So we're going to open it up, and in our roof panel, we're going to change the pitch to 6 and 12, but we're going to specify an upper pitch of 12 and 12, so it matches up with the rest of the roof. And let's do that 72 inches in from the baseline. So we're starting that second pitch a little ways in from our first one. Select OK. And that's looking much more like what we're wanting to do. So if we take a look at this again, that's looking very close, but we do have this roof return that's happening all the way across this gable and just partially on each side of this one. So we're going to open up this front wall, and under our roof panel we have an option for a roof return. So we're going to just do a full roof return, meaning it's going to extend across the full gable. Select OK there. And we have that roof return. Now for this front gable, we're going to open up that wall, and in our roof, we're going to specify a roof return. Let's do 45. And that is going to be on either side. So both sides are going to have a roof return there. We'll select OK, and that looks about right. It's coming out to meet up with our decorative here. So before we add our dormers, which we can see here, before we add those in, let's go ahead and turn off our auto rebuild roof because we're going to need to raise the ceiling back up inside of here. So let's get into the build roof dialog and uncheck auto rebuild roofs because our roof is pretty well set other than those dormers. Select OK. And now we're going to open this up and change our structure back to, let's do 108 for the finished ceiling there. We'll select OK. And now if we look inside this home, we can see those lines that we saw before for that A-frame that are showing us where our ceiling starts. So in between these dashed black lines is where we have a flat ceiling, and then it's going to be sloped down to the walls. So now we're going to drop in a couple of dormers. So let's come up to our roof tools. We'll grab our dormer and simply drop it in here. So it's going to be just our simple gable dormer, which is exactly what we want. But I do want to reduce the size of this window. So we're just going to open it up. And let's change the width to 30 inches. And the height we'll do 50. And then we're going to come down to our lights and just drop the lights across down a little bit. We'll select OK. You can see that window updated there. And now I'm just going to copy this and we're going to pull it across a little bit so we have a copy of that dormer right next to it. And with that, we pretty well finish off our structure. So now I just want to show you a few things on our website, homedesignersoftware.com. So I was working in our Home Designer Architectural 2016 program today, but like I said, the features that I use should be applicable to all 5 of our Home Designer products. So if we look under our products drop-down menu, we can see those 5 products and you can get an overview of what those are about. If we come to our product chooser, this is going to show us a detailed comparison between them so you can get an understanding of the differences. We do also have a free trial download, so you can select a product and download the trial version. Under our User Center, we have a number of training videos that will help you learn the program. We also have training webinars like the one you're watching now, so if you want to sign up for any in the future, that's a great location to do so. Our samples gallery will show you some sample plans, so you can download that chic cottage that I was working on today and you can work on that roof yourself if you would like to, or anything else inside that plan. But we do have quite a few others that you can download as well. And then we have some sample renderings for some design inspiration or to show you samples of what you can produce with the software. We do have additional content for you to download here on our website, and we have a user forum that you can connect with other users. And if we go to support, we can go to this knowledge base, and this is a great resource. We have over 500 articles that can walk you through various things within the program. So if we were to type in something like A-frame, it would give us a step-by-step on building an A-frame structure within our Home Designer programs. And then it'll also tell you which of our programs it's going to apply to, so which of those you can create this structure with. So thank you so much for attending today's demonstration. We do have a 30-day money-back guarantee on all purchases, so you can purchase risk-free for 30 days and return for any reason whatsoever. We also have discounts if you're going to be upgrading from a previous version. And if you have any questions, if you need help deciding what product is going to be right for you, if you have questions about those upgrades or about anything we've covered today, please feel free to give us a call, send us an email. We'd be happy to help you out with that. Thank you again for attending, and once again, Stephanie will be here for a little bit to answer some questions if you still have any, and have a wonderful day.